The one after Ross Says Rachel is the first episode of the 5th season of Friends. This is directed by Kevin Bright, and this is such a strong start to the season. As always, there will be spoilers as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. I actually think this is an incredibly strong episode, as I said, but I don't think it's the funniest. There's really only one moment in this. Maybe a couple of joy moments, but in general, I think there's only one moment that I think is very funny. But there's certainly a lot of suspense in this and unpredictability. And as I said, there will be spoilers from now. This one actually picks up where the last episode left off. Of course, that's just after Ross says Rachel's name. And they proceed with the wedding. Emily and Ross are married. And Phoebe tries to phone Emily's mother, pretending to be his doctor, saying Ross has forgotten his brain medicine. And Monica and Chandler end up discussing their relationship. And we basically have all of the main narratives from the previous episodes established pretty quickly. Emily has locked herself in the bathroom. Ross is, of course, frantic. The sets here are absolutely beautiful. We have a gorgeous room for the reception, and we have a lot of guests, and the costumes are stunning. It looks like a typical happy wedding location, but obviously for Ross, that's not so much the case. The band is ready. He kind of freaks out about that. There's a lovely moment between Rachel and Ross where Rachel explains that he just said her name because he saw her. And I think it's fair to say that that's not the case. But as she said, if he saw a circus freak, he would have said, I take the circus freak. She then also says that when she was getting married, she locked herself in the bathroom because she was trying to get out of the window. Well, it turns out the same thing was the case with Emily, and she has fled. And honestly, I don't blame her. I don't think it's the best way to handle the situation, but I imagine if I was in the same situation, and it would have been incredibly humiliating, I probably would have been tempted to do the same thing. We do have a bit of time spent on Monica and Chandler, who are still sleeping together at every opportunity. Unfortunately, it keeps getting ruined at every turn. Joey wants to use the room with his date, and then he wants to watch My Giant, so they go up to the honeymoon suite, and just as they're messing up the bed, Ross comes in, and of course Ross is so wrapped up in his own chaos at the moment, he doesn't really realise anything's happening with Monica and Chandler, and he manages to convince them to stay with him, so he's not on his own. And then Emily's parents come in, and this is the bit where I think is probably the funniest in the entire thing. And they're there to collect Emily's belongings. And Tom Conti, his character, says, come on, buggerface, you spent half your life in the bathroom. Why do you never go out the bloody window? The delivery of those words is just so perfect. I'm not doing it any justice, but it's so funny. And just that for me is the highlight of the episode in terms of the comedy. But there is so much going on in terms of the drama and the suspense that I don't mind at all that it's not very funny, in my opinion. We spent a tiny bit of time on the plane with Monica and Chandler, and Joey interrupting their chance once again to have a physical relationship on a plane, which always just sounds like a really bad idea anyway. And then they go back to the apartment, and we have this rather shocking moment where Phoebe detects that Joey ate meat. And of course, he said he ate meat because it was in London and it didn't count. And of course, Monica and Chandler were very quick to agree with that. And then Phoebe says, you had sex. And it looks like she's talking to Monica and Chandler. It looks like the cat is out of the bag. But it isn't. She was talking to Monica. And it was a pretty intense moment. And we then have this brief moment. And it's kind of hard to judge this scene or this episode once you've seen the episodes down the line. I don't want to go into too much detail about them, but there is a moment where Chandler and Monica go their separate ways. Chandler's going to go back to his apartment, and when Chandler leaves, Monica's attention is on the door for a couple of seconds, and it seems like in that moment there is more to it than just sex. And this isn't really fleshed out at this point, but there is that slight hint there. Chandler comes back in. He says he's still on London time. They agree that that still counts. They're getting to do what they want. And then we have the final scene. And I think it's a brilliantly done scene, and I think probably quite unpredictable. Rachel is still at the airport on standby for a flight to go home, and Ross arrives hoping Emily will be there so they can go on their honeymoon. And It looks like she's not turning up, so Rachel tells him he should go and clear his head, go on the honeymoon, spend some time away. It seems like a pretty sensible decision. Plus, he's already paid for it, so why not? And he then suggests Rachel goes with him, which I have to say was probably not the best decision, even if he didn't plan on anything happening. Taking the woman whose name you said incorrectly at the altar on your honeymoon with you is never going to end in a positive way at all. Because even if Emily didn't see it, that information is going to get back to her regardless. And that's going to make it significantly harder to fix your already broken marriage. So I don't think he made the right decision in asking Rachel to go with him. I don't think Rachel made the right decision in agreeing to go with him. I'm not saying I would have done differently, but I don't think that was the right decision. And they're about to get on the plane. It's last boarding call. Ross has forgotten his jacket. He turns around to grab it. Rachel has already gone away through the gate. And as he grabs his jacket, he sees Emily. And of course, Emily has just witnessed Ross and Rachel about to get on the plane. He runs after Emily. And Rachel is on the plane by herself. And the plane is moving. And Ross is not on that plane. And that in itself is a pretty dramatic ending as well. What's really awkward is that Rachel's going to get to the destination with none of the information, none of the booking references for the reservations. Nothing is going to be in her name, so she's not actually going to be able to check in anywhere. They don't actually touch on any of this. This is me overthinking it in terms of reality, and I've never really thought about it like that before. But Rachel is basically going to a destination where nothing is in her name. She hasn't paid for anything. She probably doesn't even know where the hotel is. This is a pretty horrible situation to be in. But nevertheless, that's where we end things with this episode. And I think it's a really brilliant episode. As I said, incredibly strong start to season 1. I know what happens next. I cannot wait to rewatch those episodes. It's quite strange. I think I've mentioned this before, but I'm not a fan of Emily. I don't like Emily as a character. But some of these episodes are not necessarily some of my all-time favourites, but I do really love them, which is quite strange. But nevertheless, the one after Ross Says Rachel is a brilliant episode, and really looking forward to watching the next one. And I'm sure this is one that I'll always really thoroughly enjoy.